So, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Anders Jensen. I'm fortunate enough to be the executive director of EuroHPC. And I've been going on a bit of a roadshow because we're the vehicle behind the scenes, but it's really become evident that there's a need to explain exactly how we fit in and the problem that we're trying to address. So, of course, I work very closely with Lilith and the whole team here. They're one of our many competence centers. I think just back on, can you be proud? Yeah, they're a bit ahead of the game in many areas. So also on that, I think we sometimes look to the Swedish competence center as a reference for how we could maybe do things elsewhere. Anyway, so who are we? So we are a joint undertaking, and what does that mean? It's a special legal entity within the EU institutions, and really the emphasis on joint. Everything we do, we have to do jointly, and I'll get a little into that. It was mentioned also for KDT. KDT is a sister joint undertaking, and what it means is that every time I spend a euro, someone else has to spend a euro. So it's not just EU funds that go out. No, the projects are being done jointly with the participating states. And what that means is not only do we get double the budget, that's the nice thing, of course, but it also means the projects, when they get selected, what we choose to put into the work program gets to be relevant, has to be relevant for the participating states. So there's very much a discussion about what projects are relevant for the ecosystem at large, and that actually can be quite exciting to come up with projects that are interesting, not only from an EU perspective in pushing, but also from where there will be participating states wishing to sign up and co-fund. So we were created, EuroHPC was actually created back in 2018, but it was a part of what's known as the Connect DG within the EU, and it was run inside of that. In September 2020, we became autonomous, and by that means we got our own budget, we have our own organization. We're located in the building that's on the picture there in Luxembourg. Mind you, we don't have the whole building. We have half a floor in one of those wings. At this point in time, I used to say we're a very small team. For the longest time, we were 12 people. We've actually grown significantly. And at this point in time, we count about 22 people, and I'll have another 5 joining very shortly. So it's a growing one, but if any of you thinks what you're going to see is cool and you'd like to be part of it, just keep track of our website. We are going to be growing to about 50 people, so there are going to be other openings coming up. So at this point in time, we have 32 participating states, and that's more than just the member states, the normal EU member states. So I'm fortunate enough to have Iceland, Norway, Turkey, other not the usual suspects in there, which gives an interesting dynamic and something extra. And then we have, of course, the European Union, who is contributing in many cases half the funds, and then we have private partners. So and we have 3 private associations that are part of members of the joint undertaking, and all of these, they sit on my governing board. So I have 36 bosses, each with diverging views on how things should be. On the private member side, you have them over there: Big Value Data Association, QUIC, and ETP for HPC. They each represent a group in the ecosystem. And we've recently have QUIC join us because, as part of what we refer to as the new regulation, quantum computers came to the joint undertaking, and we have now been entrusted with doing for HPC, doing to quantum what we've already done for HPC. And for that, we needed some expertise amongst the private members, and we got QUIC to join us for that. So funding, this is cool. Basically, this is the money that the joint undertaking has been entrusted by the union. It comes out of various programs. If you add it all together, you'll get to about 3.5 billion euros. This is the amount of money that's that the union envisage being spent on HPC over the in the financial framework that we're in right now. So we have about 6 years left to do that. Now, again, I have to say, this is joint. So it's all well and good, but you know, when we go out and fund, for instance, LUMI, so LUMI was funded under Horizon 2020. They were under the old regulation, but if it was today, it would have been funded out of the Digital Europe program, and we would then fund half. And then the consortium that wishes to have the machine would fund the other half. So again, that's why we're saying EuroHPC, it's 7 billion euros that Europe, not just the Union, but Europe is looking to spend on HPC and the whole ecosystem in this current framework. Now, we've been funded in 3 pillars. So in the previous regulation, it was all Horizon 2020, but in this under this regulation, we've been funded by the Digital Europe program, which is all about infrastructure. Horizon Europe, so we actually, aside from being able to give you access to machines, there are quite a few, we're going to have quite a few research and innovation programs as well. And then finally, we have money from Connecting Europe, which we're going to be looking to augment the whole network around the supercomputers. So the reason we exist is because there was a realization within Europe that there had been an underinvestment in HPC across Europe. So basically, if you looked at the top 500 list and so on, Europe was falling behind. The investments were going on elsewhere. But there's also the realization that even the biggest countries in Europe had a hard time competing with the other players in the world. So, but by joining forces, we could do so much more. And that's essentially where the joint undertaking comes in. It's about pulling the resources together, because we all know that if we spent double the money on a computer, we get more than double the horsepower. So by joining forces, we've managed to get some infrastructure that is much bigger than any individual European country would have purchased on their own. And LUMI is a fantastic example of that. And I'll get back to that. But the whole concept of joint undertakings is pulling the money together, so that by joining forces, we all get something better. So that's on the infrastructure side, and with the new regulation, we also were entrusted with quantum. So it's not just about HPC. Our governing board last week approved the procurement now of 6 quantum computers. So there will be 6 quantum computers that will be installed across Europe, and where there will be access, there will be a model for access, which will be similar to the one that we have for the supercomputers today. And I think it's really important just to emphasize that every time we do something, because it's joint, there's a part that the joint undertaking owns. And the joint undertaking is every single member of the joint undertaking. So just because a computer isn't located in your country does not mean you can't have access to it. You actually have full access to the joint undertakings part of the time. Any of the machines that the joint undertaking has invested in, there's a part of that time that is owned by the joint undertaking, and that means every single participating state can put in for that time. But we have more than that. So it's not just infrastructure. It is also to support the research and innovation into supercomputing, and you can say computing in general, but with an emphasis on high performance. So again, there are a number of technologies where basically the ambition is we should build a European supercomputer at some point in time. That's the fundamental ambition. And we wish to develop the technologies in all areas so that we have companies that's able to supply this. You can paint a very dark picture on occasion that Europe has fallen so far behind, but the fact is, in some areas, we're actually ahead of the game. And it's being seen now with the energy problems that we're having. I mean, really, where Europe has always been really good has been on energy efficiency, if we can call it that. So we have some companies that's actually in the forefront of that, and with their technologies. And so not only do we wish to fund research to bring up the level in certain areas, but we also wish to make sure that we continue to be at the forefront in the areas where we've been historically leading. Applications is another side where we actually have some really, really good expertise within Europe. We need to make sure we stay at the forefront of those. And then last but definitely not least, the big focus, which we're all concerned about, is these systems are complicated, and we need people that actually know what they're doing on them. What's the point of investing in all of this if no one actually knows how to use the infrastructure, how to do these things? So there's a very significant push from the joint undertaking and the countries behind it that we need to set up training programs across the board in as many ways as we can to get as many users knowledgeable about how to get advantage of HPC. So on the infrastructure side, as part of the new regulation, what was added was quantum, and as I already told you, we've just agreed the procurement of the first 6 quantum computers. But what was also in there was we're now moving on to Exascale, and it has already been agreed by the governing board to launch the first procurement for an Exascale. This will be hosted in Germany, and this is really where we are truly want to catch up with the rest of the world. Just gonna skip through that. We already covered that. If we look at the machines as they are right now, so we have 3 pre-exascales and 5 petascales. On Lilith's great slide before, which summarized the hardware very well on what's available out there. There were only 7 systems. That's because Mare Nostrum 5 in Spain has only just been procured. So I'd love to have that slide updated because it was great, just very with just few lines, you summarized what was in each of the systems. If you wish to have more information on the systems, it's available on our website. And we'll just take a quick look at it. But what you can see is geographically dispersed throughout Europe, and of several orders of magnitude inside. We have in Slovenia, we have Vega, we have Melanxina in Luxembourg, Carolina in the Czech Republic, and Discoverer in Bulgaria. And then, of course, Lumi, which I'm sure is the one that you know very well here in Finland. Now, some of these are just co-owned by one participating state. Others, like Lumi, I think is a fantastic example where 10 countries have gone together to be the consortium behind the machine on the 50% funding that needs to come from elsewhere. And then we are building right now Leonardo in Italy. We ran into a little delay in the data center when they found Roman ruins, and we had to wait. We couldn't roll in the supercomputer until the archaeologists were done and saying that there were no dead bodies and other good stuff in there. But it's now going forward, and we're targeting getting it on the top 500 in November, and then opening up operations somewhere Q1 next year. And again, that means this is a machine, as much as you love Lumi, the 50% of the capacity of Leonardo is available to anyone in Europe. So you will be able to put in for that. We will have Mare Nostrum 5 in Barcelona. The same thing. There we're hoping for a ranking in the June top 500 next year. And then last but not least, we're waiting for Decalion in Portugal. Decalion is a really interesting machine, not because it's super big, but because it's a mini micro version of Fugaku, the now world number 2, but for the longest time world leader on the top 500. And where it's going to get really interesting is we're in discussions with Japan to get access to Fugaku, which means that if we are successful with this, then Fugaku, a certain amount of time on Fugaku, will be available to the participating states as part of the joint undertaking, in return for Japan getting access, similar access on some of our systems. So we're looking for a time swap, but it really means you can start your application then on Decalion. When it's running, you can actually get to run on what used to be the world number one, now the world number two. I think LUMI, I don't think it needs much introduction in this room, but for me, this was really the testimony that the joint undertaking that we've managed to deliver on the idea that we had fallen behind and Europe needed to catch up. I mean, this was ranked as number 3 in the world, behind Fugaku, and beaten, of course, by the fact that the Americans got Frontier on the list, but I don't really take offense of that because it's exactly the same machine. The fact is, LUMI and Frontier are basically the same machine. They just had more money and bought more components. So so essentially, by accessing LUMI, you're accessing the technology of the world number one machine that's out there today. It's the same technology, which we also has been very helpful because, of course, the little bugs were ironed out on Frontier and then implemented in LUMI for us. So it's actually been a really good working relationship. We're hoping to do a final acceptance on the machine by the end of this month. But again, I think it's a fantastic example of this joint part. The fact that there are 10 countries behind the scenes that's gone together, financed 50%. The joint undertaking is financing the other 50%. It leaves you with double access because you can access LUMI via whatever national system is there. It's none of my business how that works, but you are also free to access LUMI via the joint undertakings time. And then the Jupiter, it's going to be our first exascale system. It's in the planning at the moment. We hope to go to market with a procurement later this year, and we hope to go to contract somewhere in the spring next year. And then I'm not gonna. I have my ambitions about the planning, but of course that all depends on what the bidders sends back in their responses to our request. So I'm not going to promise exactly when it's going to be there. Now, I do think it's important, especially in these days, when we select a machine, there's always been quite a focus on energy, and so it's not just about how much raw compute power you get, but it's also been about how we pay for it, how we get the electricity in. And each of the machines actually have an energy story. Of course, LUMI, you can't beat that. Open the window to cool it, and you send the excess heat down to the village, and you get the energy from the water outside. It's fantastic. But actually, every single one of the machines have a story about this. And the way this works is that the joint undertaking, when we want more machines, we go out with a call to say, look, who wishes to host a EuroHPC machine? And then consortia can reply, and part of what they have to explain, why should we choose them as a hosting site, is the energy story and how we deal with that, or how they choose to deal with that. Equally, as I'll get a little into when we look at the research and innovation side, the ambition is to build a European a supercomputer based on European technology, and of course, there energy efficiency is at the forefront of what we wish to achieve with that. So access, I think this was really well covered by Lilith in her presentation. I just want to stress these machines. The JU time is open to everyone in Europe, and really the way it works, it's not even limited to the who are participating states in the joint undertaking. No, the basically what defines it is who was part of funding the machine. The 8 machines we have so far, or that are being built, they were funded by Horizon 2020. So a country that was associated with Horizon 2020 can put in a request to have access time on the machines that they basically help fund. There's a process, and I would encourage you to just use the video that's been produced. If you wish the direct link, it's up on our website. You go there and you put in your application. Benchmark and development are very, very simple. What we do is a technical check that what you want to do makes sense. And then we will let you loose on the machine. The fundamental idea of benchmark is that you're supposed to, in a perfect world, have done a benchmark before we let you loose on regular access or extreme access. At this point in time, since we were filling up the machines, we've been a little loose on that. But that is the aim. That is where we're going to go at some point. That you have to demonstrate that you know that your application makes sense on the architecture that you wish to run on, and then you put in for regular access or extreme access. And there's a peer review process. So basically, your application will be reviewed by peers in the scientific fields, and and based on that, a ranking list comes up, and you get access. What we primarily, of course, this is for open science, but as I know there's industry in here, we have the ability to let industry loose on the machines, as I know some of you have already had the pleasure of doing. There are certain rules that apply to that, but as long as you fall into the SME category, they're actually quite, they're okay. And just keep in mind, when the EU speaks about SMEs, it may not necessarily be the size of company you think of as an SME. Quite a few companies are SMEs in the EU set of the rules. I think it's 250 staff members or something like that. So, and in my little mind, I count an SME as 20, 30 people, right? But that's not, you can actually be significantly bigger than that. But, so on the research and innovation, and I think it is really important. There may be some of you sitting out there that thinks that there could be some interesting projects in this. We're really looking to address the full stack of a supercomputer. And the intention is to be able to, at some point in time, build a supercomputer based on European hardware or research. That does not necessarily, I'm not saying that we would then never buy an American machine again. No, that's not the point. We just also want to be able to build one. We're starting all the way down at the hardware, at the core with the processor. So we already have a European processor initiative that's been going on for some years. This is an ARM-based processor that's being developed. But we're currently discussing the next iteration of this, which is RISC-V. So you will see both from EuroHPC, but also from KDT, which will probably morph into the chip JU, a strong push from the EU side for research into RISC-V and how we can truly build an ecosystem, a European ecosystem around RISC-V. System software, again, we're looking to have Europe. This is a place where Europe has actually been very much leading and still is in and around modular supercomputing, dynamic resource allocation, and so on. We wish, of course, to continue the good work in that. And of course, we're looking at whatever we do down at the hardware stack. We need to have a software stack that supports that. We move further up the chain. We got the whole application. Europe has been leading, is leading on a number of HPC applications. We need to continue that good work. But I'm also convinced, especially with industry, that there are a number of applications out there to be discovered, that we haven't even thought about. And the idea that we can make this type of infrastructure available to people who've not really thought about what they could do if they have access to it, I think we will discover over the coming years applications we never even dreamt of. And then, of course, finally, the user. We need to deal with the fact that there's a lack of talent in this space across the board, and you will see a number of initiatives from the joint undertaking. And you can say what Lilith and the team is doing with the competency centers is part of it. Getting the word out there, and you'll see us coming with initiatives to complement that and to broaden it further. I already spoke about the European initiative for EPI, as we call it, processor initiative. And then again, a set of projects that we have, which is more on the research side of the supercomputers. So we've had a number of projects in and around fundamentally how do we set up a supercomputer? How do we use the resources in the best way? And this is an area where Europe has been leading, and we just need to take it to the next step and turn it into a machine. At the application level, we've had a number of projects as well to take advantage of the modern architecture, and they're ongoing. And then just to let you know, one of the calls that's out there, which you may actually find interesting, I have to warn you, though, not the initial call, may not be what you find interesting, but what comes out of it. We want to go out to everyone to say, look, if anyone has a good idea about an algorithm for HPC that could make a difference, but you need a bit of funding in order to make it happen. What we wish to do is have a setup where there would be small grants, where you would be able to spend some time on, this is fundamental research into algorithms. So if anyone's sitting out there with thinking they have the new sorting algorithm for HPC or something like that, or can do matrix multiplications even faster, I just read apparently AI has found a new way to multiply matrices, but anyway. If anyone's sitting there, then this is something we're looking to fund. Now, it's a two-stage rocket, and that's why I say we have a call that will be closing shortly, but that's for a consortium to manage the call that actually matters. So it's going to be a cascading grant, so this call will close shortly, and what we will fund is a consortium or an entity that will then do the next step. This is just like we did that was done with the Fortissimo projects for that allowed SMEs, for instance, into HPC projects. So we're looking to do the same thing for algorithm research. And with that, I thank you for your attention, and I'm available for any questions.